PFAS contamination exposure has devastated many communities in Michigan as well as across the country and for far too long. PFAS contamination, as you're well aware, is not just an environmental threat, but it's a danger to public health and devastates local economies. And we have to do everything we can to address the impact of these toxic chemicals. And that's why I want to first off say I was pleased to see the EPA designate two of the most notorious PFAS compounds, PFOA and PFAS, as hazardous substances under the Superfund program last year. I was also pleased to see last month's announcement that EPA is considering expanding the list of PFAS that are designated as hazardous under the Superfund. So my question for you, sir, is can you speak to the importance of classifying PFAS under Superfund, as well as what the EPA's plans are to ensure that state agencies and affected communities are actually part of these cleanup decisions that are being made?
Well, absolutely, and I can say as former state regulator in North Carolina, the relationship that the states and the federal government have is so important. Many of our state agencies have the delegated authority to implement on clean air and clean water statutes, and so having that state and local and federal cooperation is extremely important, not just on the implementation side, but definitely on the planning side. We have taken important steps in proposing to designate two PFAS under CERCLA, and we believe that it's not only our jobs to prevent this forever chemical from entering and polluting, but also if it does, we have to clean it up. And so we're excited about where we are in that interagency process. We've worked hand in hand with USDA and the Department of Defense as well. And we believe we're making significant progress, not just setting drinking water standards, but to the point you're making, setting up the cleanup standards as well.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, I appreciate the two of those substances were part of your action. But as you know, PFAS encompasses hundreds of different variations of that chemical, and we would assume that they also present significant hazards as being part of that family. So my question for you is, can you commit to establishing national primary drinking water regulations for additional types of PFAS as soon as possible, or give us some idea of how you plan to progress on dealing with the broader issue of a very large family of dangerous chemicals?
Absolutely. I can commit to saying this, which is we have designated 6. We've got 29 additional on our radar. As we get the science and as we get the data in, and we will continue to work across our federal family, especially with CDC and others, to determine the health impacts, we will continue to move forward designating these dangerous chemical compounds and regulating them accordingly.
Good. So I appreciate that effort. It's a big job, and appreciate your focus on it.
Thank you.
The next question is that federal research efforts have often been fragmented at various federal agencies and have struggled to address really the full scope of the problems of PFAS. That's why I introduced the Federal PFAS Research Evaluation Act. It's co-sponsored by a bipartisan group of Senators Moran, Shaheen, and Durbin, to direct a study by the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine to help inform decisions by the federal government, state governments, industry, and other stakeholders as to how we deal with these complex substances. So my question for you is, would you please, or can you speak to the importance of having a more comprehensive federal research approach to better inform PFAS mitigation efforts and ultimately to help families and first responders and our environment that are all impacted by these substances?
It's absolutely imperative that we have additional research into this chemical compound and into the technologies that will deter this from entering our bodies. That's why we've asked for about $170 million in the budget for 2024 so that we can keep pace with the research and development being done with our federal family counterparts, as well as what's happening in academia and at the state level. We need to get a handle on this science and the health impacts. We're going to work across the federal family, state and local agencies as well, and academia to be sure that we're competitive. And the $170 million that we're requesting for the budget will go a long way.
Great. Thank you, Administrator. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.